So it is my honor now to announce a guest speaker that we have with us today. And this person, Sheri, and I talked on the phone a little bit, and she's had discussions with Mary Jo in our own congregation here. She runs the Blessings Soup Kitchen in Ottumwa. She'll tell you all about it. And just going to welcome her up here, set the mic on, and have her do her thing. We'll give her a warm welcome round of applause.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Yep. I'm going to arrange a little bit. I had a slide presentation, and it had 25 slides, but my Apple computer didn't talk to your computer. So I think it's kind of prophetic that maybe we weren't supposed to take a bite out of that apple, so that might have been biblical. So Blessings Soup Kitchen, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Sheri Locke. I was raised in Eddyville in a Methodist church. And so I really appreciate the liveliness and friendliness of this congregation. It was just super, I felt very at home the minute I came here. So good for you for having such a nice group that gets out in the morning so early and gets at it. Praise the Lord. I was trained as a teacher and I taught for 10 years. And then I was a sales manager of a television station for 10 years. And then I got struck down and didn't walk, talk, read, or write for 3 years. And life kind of, I was able to think, but it was like my rheostat was turning on, my brain was turning on slow after that happened. I was given a mismedication is what I was told. But anyway, I wasn't supposed to be able to come out of it, and God works miracles. My brain rerouted. I may not be as clever as I once was, but I'm here and I'm walking, and praise God. After that, though, I had to find a way to make a living. And so as I was sitting there thinking about it for 3 years, without able to talk, I remembered my father said, anything you can think through, you can do. Well, I look forward to being able to think through something. And we had a house that was on a farm I had purchased when I was sales manager of a television station, and it didn't have any roof on it. And so I started buying shingles and climbing up on that roof and putting shingles on it, and then I was like, well, that's pretty good. And then I thought, well, I need some siding, so I started putting siding on it. And then I decided I was a general contractor. I sold that house, and that was pretty good, and I built a new house to resell, because that worked out really good. I put it on some land I had. I got it all completed. I was so proud of this house. I brought the realtors there, and they said, well, this is lovely, but where are the closets? And I was like, I should put closets in. I wasn't quite ready for what I was doing, but anyway, I put closets in and reworked that house and sold it at a loss. But then I went on to be a general contractor for 34 new homes. So God raised me out of a very low place and allowed me to do that. And then now I am blessed to have be at Blessings Soup Kitchen. And right after being in contracting, I was in and am how I make my living and how I keep my lights on usually is I'm an antique dealer with my now husband, Gary Smith. And we are wholesalers, and what people do is retailers come and fill, we have 11 warehouses, so we're pickers. that used to be a real low word, now people think it's something fantastic, but it's pretty close to scavenging in junk, let me tell you. It's a tough road. But Blessings Soup Kitchen, I want to tell you about that, because even though I'm still doing the antiques with my husband, when I was called to do Blessings Soup Kitchen, I'm going to be honest, I had no intention of running a soup kitchen in my entire life. I volunteered at one once, and I said to my friend, I couldn't have got out of there fast enough. I thought it was depressing, and unfriendly. So I tell you that not to tell you what a bad person I was, but to tell you that when God spoke this to me through a dream, I want to share a scripture with you. And it shall come to pass in the last days, says God, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Well, I'm the old man in this because I had a dream. And this dream in 2013 was so real that you could smell it, taste it, and touch it. It was that real. And the way that I would go to work with Gary, he was my neighbor at the time, was we would meet on the truck to go picking. And he said to me, as we met on the truck that morning at 8, he said, "How was your evening?" And I said, "Gary, I had a dream, and we're supposed to start a soup kitchen. I saw the buildings, I saw the exact buildings, I saw us in it. It was real small inside, but the buildings are big." And he was, "Now, Sheri, we have a job. It's not doing a soup kitchen, and no," I said, "this is a real deal." I said, I really feel like we are supposed to do this." And he said, "How do you even know those buildings are for sale?" Now, if you're familiar with Ottumwa, do you remember the old Brody store for men on Main Street, catty-cornered across from the theaters? And then right next to it was a building called the Promise Center. Well, those are the buildings I saw in my dream. And Gary said, "Let's get this out of your system and show you that these buildings aren't available. So let's go to Ottumwa now." We were supposed to go picking in Iowa City or above Iowa City, and he said, "Let's go Ottumwa and just settle this." Well, we got to Ottumwa, and when we got to Ottumwa, we pulled down Main Street, and as we pulled in front of those two buildings, Dan Kavanaugh, the realtor, was putting the for sale sign in the window. And I got so excited by that I said, "Well, what about the building next door," which I had also seen? And he said, "That's what this other sign's for." Well, this shook Gary up. And so I asked the price. It was two different sellers, but he was listing them at the same time. It was two different sellers, and he said the price. And Gary said, "Well, now that settles it. We've got $300 in our account. Let's go." So it was very expensive. And then we left, and we were driving down Richmond toward the old Glover Ford, that area. And Gary was yapping to me, and I was listening, and I fell asleep. That's possible when you're talking to Gary, but at this time, I just felt the Lord put me asleep because he gave me a quick dream, and then I woke up. Gary's still yapping. He doesn't know that I was asleep. And I called the realtor and made an offer while he's talking to me. He goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well," I told him, it's so low, it doesn't matter. I said, "I just had a dream to offer this amount." Well, when I called, the realtor said, "Oh my goodness, Sheri, it hasn't been on the market 12 hours and you want to drop the price on these two buildings $78,000. He goes, I'm not gonna waste their time and write it down. And I'm like, well, by law, you have to. And so, we used to be friends, but he didn't write it out. He called them and said that he'd done his part. He represented them too. And then 2 days later, he called and said, I don't know what happened to them. They both agreed. So, it was on. We closed on both buildings 3 weeks after the dream. And they said, by the way, it comes with the building and back. Well, I didn't even know that building existed. Now, it doesn't look so cool there, but it had wood siding on it, and it was a wreck. It was a wreck inside and out, but Gary decided this is going to be the soup kitchen. It's only 16 feet wide inside, and it's 38 feet long, but this is it now. And it's really cute inside. It's composed of all the paneling is in doors, made of white doors and windows. We were picking, and there was this place that had tons of doors, but they were all $60 to $90 a piece. They were quite overpriced. But they did have 2 doors beside each other, fastened to the wall, and I said, oh, that'd be cool if we could do something like that for the soup kitchen, thinking like a picker, trying to think how this $300 we have in our bank account is going to build a restaurant. And the lady said, you're building a soup kitchen? This was at the salvage barn in Iowa City. And I said, yes. And she goes, well, I like that. She said, take all the doors you want for $10 a piece. So we paneled the whole place in doors and windows, and we painted them all. I had volunteers show up. Now I want to tell you how God worked on this. You cut me off when I need to be cut off, because I love to brag on what God did on this project. We didn't have any money to hire carpenters or anything like that. We showed up at this, and this is a true story. Up came a group of people and said, we're supposed to do community service. Is there anything you need done today? And I was like, and I did. And if you could see my slideshow, we'll pretend. They painted every individual brick. They built these awnings. They just came back day after day after day. And all they asked for was a sandwich at lunch. And they just kept working on it. The inside was just lath and plaster with two light bulbs hanging down, no plumbing. And I found out why in the dream that the other 2 buildings came into play, because they were all on one electrical service. Well, I found out it needed a new electrical service to even run ovens in this little building. And so I called an electrician. Yep, it needs all of this. I don't talk electric. It needs this, and this. And we have to come in under the alley there and to put it in. $37,000. Oh no. Then I called a second electrician, and it was $42,000. And as I'm letting him out the front door of the old Brody store, I said, I'm sorry, Gary, what have I got us into? And there's a guy running down the street. He said, I need in that building. I said, no, sir, we're not a business. I'm just letting this guy out. He said, well, I had him in school. You need an electrician, don't you? And I said, well, I don't know what I said, but I let him in, and he looked everything over. Turns out he had been the electrician or the teacher for these other 2 guys that gave me the bid. I said, does it really need all this stuff? He said, yes, it does. I said, well, what will it cost? And he said, well, do you think I'm going to charge the Lord that woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to come to your lecture? That man's from this community, and he paid for half of the materials, and I paid, or Gary and I paid for half of the materials. The furnace. The furnace was supplied by a man who called. He was in the VA hospital in Iowa City. And he called the Chamber of Commerce and said, is there a business called Blessings? They said no. And he called them back and he said, is there a business called Blessings? Are you sure there is not? They said there's some lady starting a soup kitchen. It's not really a business, it's a soup kitchen. He said, that's it, I need her number. He had been given a dream to do our furnace. He was a furnace man in the hospital in Iowa City, and laying in that hospital, God gave him a dream to come put our furnace and air in. Is God great or what? I mean, it's amazing the things that happen, and that's how the whole thing has happened. Right now, we're feeding. I have 2 volunteers out there in the congregation, Marianne and Richard Long, and we're feeding anywhere from 100 to 200 people a day, and elderly, children, poor people. Unemployed, just people that are hungry. The Lord gave us a scripture on that, and that, well, you know the scripture, Peter, feed my sheep. If you love me, feed my sheep. Well, what we do at Blessings is we feed his sheep. And we try to do it in a way that you're seated like at a restaurant. We seat 28 people. And it turns over in, like at the canteen, you know, when you're done, you get up and you just come in. Your water gets poured, you get your dessert served to you, you get your meal served to you. I cook, Marianne makes desserts. They come once a month to do it. There's 50 to 70 volunteers a week that help at Blessings. Had I known when I started, and by the way, Sheri, you'll have to have 50 to 70 volunteers a week. And I don't have to call them, they show up like work, they show up like clockwork. And if they can't be there, they call in somebody to be there for them. One day, there's so many things I want to say. Have I talked too long? Everything was going along so well on this remodel that there was a hole, a big pothole in front of the soup kitchen. We hadn't opened yet, and I was like, wow, everything's looking so beautiful. I wish I could just requisition a new street, but you can't do that. The very next day, out there with jackhammers, digging up that street, and I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry. We're going to fix this. We're going to fix this. We thought there was a gas leak, but we're going to just fix this whole section. The Lord took care of every bit of it. He told me not to ask others. He said he'll put it on their heart. And the very next day, as if it was a test, what I thought was the church that would probably have to really carry this thing came in and said, what can I do for you? You're going to have to ask me. I was like, that's exactly what I'm not supposed to do. So I said, well, I can't ask you. I'm really not comfortable with that. Let's just let the Lord put it on your heart. No, you're going to have to ask. I don't have one sponsor, and here I am with perhaps what in my mind was my biggest sponsor. You know what? I didn't ask. They walked out the door, a bit perturbed at me, but you know what? God showed that he doesn't need anybody. He needs good hearts. He needs right hearts, and he has backed it 100%. We have never once run out of food. We have served the last spoon to the last person probably hundreds of times. And one day we were really slammed, and Marianne said, how She goes, no, really, how do you pay for it? And I said, no, I'll show you what we have in our account today. On that particular day, we were down to $14, and I had just gone through the bank account. It takes a couple $100s a day to run the place on a, and just with utilities, insurances, everything, and food. And we had $14, and she said something like, are you closing? Or something like that. And I, no, this is how it is. And the place is run on, I want to read Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I think I told her something like, all I know is this is how it works here. And I know by morning we'll have enough to go. Well, that was around 1:30, and I know before 2 o'clock, and I know specifically it was before 2 o'clock because I was sitting in the Walgreens parking lot waiting for happy hour at Sonic to open, and that starts at 2. So I know it wasn't 2 yet, and my phone rings. And it's a man that says he would like to give us a grant. And I said, oh, I haven't applied for a grant. And he said I had won a grant. And I said, I haven't applied for a grant. He goes, yeah, that's a problem. And so he told me what I needed to do and all the paperwork and all this. And I said, that's great. I'll try to have that done by a week from Friday. And he said, oh no, I'm supposed to give it to you at 8:30 in the morning. So he gave us a grant for exactly 100 times what we had in the bank. And did I do my math right? It was $1,400 anyway. And God has been faithful on this. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens us. And we also feed 7 people over the age of 90 on a regular basis. You know, they drive, one comes in with a walker, and I just feel like we're so blessed to be able to do this, that it is such an honor, and I don't know how I got chosen to be a part of this, but it is certainly not by my strength at all or by anything I have done. It is evident again and again and again that it is of the Lord. I'm going to look at what my other pictures are because I don't know where I'm at in this story. That's the inside of the kitchen. You can see it's not very big, and over there on the left, that wall that you can't see is all done in white doors. One of those community service kids that was painting doors, and we paneled with doors. And we were painting. We used 30-some doors. We made the counter out of doors and the walls out of doors, the pot racks a ladder, and different things. And she was like, do you really need this? This gal was helping me paint. She was from the halfway house, and she goes, do you think you really need 38 exits? I was like, no, but we're going to just put this up here. And then when she saw it, she said, I finally get it. I finally get what you did. And she goes, it's like what God's doing with me. She goes, he took something that was just worn out and thrown away and nobody cared about and just put paint on it and gave it an all new meaning. And she blessed me that day with those thoughts. We have a pie lady that God also told us to turn the Brody store. It was another dream. I told this to one congregation, and a man said, well, you're going to make me not want to go to sleep at night for fear of a dream. Anyway, we were told to start a coffee shop. So in the old Brody store for men, we started a coffee shop. And on the way to pick pumpkins, a couple years ago, before we started, or 3 years ago, my husband said, well, what shall we serve with coffee? And this was before it turned into a restaurant. Well, I said, I don't know. What do you like with coffee, Gary? And he said, well, I like pie. And out of my mouth, I said, too bad we don't know who the old canteen pie lady was, because those pies were really good. That was on a Monday. And on Tuesday, there was a couple came in, sat at the second table, and were looking around, asked if they could volunteer. And the next week, they volunteered. And the lady said, "Is this all the kitchen you have?" And I said, "No, I've got more kitchen downstairs." So I took her and showed her, and she goes, "Well, this'll do. I'm the old canteen pie lady, and I'm gonna make your pies." I'm telling you, if we thought it, if we thunk it, God did it, I'll tell you. There's the doors of the volunteers. There's the coffee shop, and God is good. The coffee shop, we don't take any money out of there. Goes to help support the soup kitchen. So I am blessed to be able to tell you about this. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities. If that's ever a time that you feel led to come on board, we're on Facebook as Blessings Soup Kitchen, and you're welcome to join there. There's 2 Blessings Soup Kitchen Facebook accounts. One I started has 4,500, and just to confuse it, I had a 10-year-old friend that started one for me too, and it has 100 or so, and I'm just really blessed, and I really thank you for letting me talk here today. Thank you.